According to recent studies, loneliness is rising faster than ever. People are more connected digitally, yet more emotionally disconnected than they've ever been. And in the middle of all that, there's a certain type of person quietly disappearing from everyone's life. Not dramatically, not loudly. They just slowly stop replying, stop reaching out, stop explaining themselves, and eventually they disappear. What's interesting is this. Most of these people are not sitting alone feeling miserable. In fact, many of them feel something completely different: relief. And that raises a deeper question. Why would someone feel more peaceful after cutting people off? Because usually, people don't withdraw emotionally overnight. It happens slowly, one disappointment at a time, one exhausting relationship at a time, one moment where they realize, I keep giving people access to me and leaving drained afterward. A lot of people who cut everyone off were once the emotionally available ones, the dependable friend, the person who always listened, the one who stayed patient during everyone else's chaos. They were the person people leaned on emotionally. And for a while, they accepted that role without questioning it. Until eventually, something changed. They started noticing patterns. They noticed who only called when they needed something, who disappeared when support was no longer convenient, who made them feel emotionally heavy instead of emotionally safe. And once someone starts seeing those patterns clearly, it becomes hard to ignore them. Psychologically, this is important, because the brain is constantly learning from emotional experiences. If enough relationships leave you feeling anxious, drained, emotionally unsafe, your nervous system starts adapting. It stops associating people with comfort and starts associating them with exhaustion. That's why some people slowly become more distant over time. Not because they hate connection, but because their brain no longer experiences connection as peaceful. And for many people, this pattern starts much earlier than adulthood. Some people grew up in environments where emotional unpredictability was normal. Maybe they had to read the room constantly. Maybe they learned that moods could change without warning. Maybe closeness felt emotionally unstable instead of safe. So they adapted early. They became hyper-aware, careful, emotionally self-protective. And as adults, that same survival pattern still follows them. They become the person who says, I'd rather handle things myself. Not because they truly want to be alone, but because relying on people stopped feeling emotionally safe a long time ago. And here's where people misunderstand them. From the outside, it can look cold, like they stopped caring. But internally, many of these people care deeply, sometimes too deeply. That's actually part of the reason they withdraw. Because emotionally sensitive people eventually reach a point where overstimulation becomes exhausting. Too much drama, too much inconsistency, too many emotionally one-sided relationships. So eventually, distance stops feeling lonely and starts feeling peaceful. That's the part most people don't understand. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness feels empty. Solitude feels quiet. One feels like abandonment. The other feels like recovery. And people who cut everyone off are often searching for recovery more than isolation. But there's also an important truth here. Not all withdrawal is healthy. Sometimes protecting your peace becomes avoiding vulnerability altogether. Sometimes, after enough disappointment, people stop giving anyone access to them at all. And at first, that feels safe. But over time, emotional walls can become emotional prisons because humans still need connection, not constant connection, not draining connection, but safe connection, the kind where you don't have to perform, the kind where your nervous system can finally relax. And deep down, most people who cut everyone off still want that. They just become extremely careful about who they betray, because once you've experienced enough emotional exhaustion, Peace becomes addictive. You start valuing calmness, honesty, consistency more than excitement or attention. That's why many people who cut others off become incredibly selective, not because they think they're better than everyone else, but because their tolerance for emotional chaos becomes very low. And honestly, sometimes that change is necessary. Some relationships really are unhealthy. Some people really do drain your energy, and learning to walk away from those environments can genuinely change your mental health. But the healthiest version of healing is not, I need nobody. It's, I choose carefully. That's the difference. Because cutting everyone off might protect you temporarily. But eventually, healing also requires learning that safe people exist too. And that can be difficult for people whose brains became trained for emotional self-protection, especially when independence became part of their identity. Because after years of handling everything alone, vulnerability starts feeling unnatural. Even when someone genuinely cares about you, there's still a voice in your head saying, don't depend too much. So instead, you stay guarded, self-contained, distant. Not because you feel nothing, but because feeling too much once came with consequences. And maybe that's the real psychology behind people who cut everyone off. It's usually not hatred, it's exhaustion. It's a nervous system that got tired of carrying emotional weight for people who never carried it back. It's someone trying to create peace after spending too long emotionally overwhelmed. And if you relate to this, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain learned to protect you. The important part is making sure protection doesn't slowly turn into permanent isolation, because peace is important. But eventually, healing also means finding people who feel peaceful to be around, not people you have to recover from afterward. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. Because a lot of people carry these feelings silently. And sometimes understanding yourself changes everything.